Okay, so I wanted to just make a note of the refrigerator. Hear how that's continually running? That stuff is emanating from this area. Um, the animals do not feel good. They're freaked out every time I leave and come back. I can notice telltale signs. Like if I leave and they're both on the couch here, then I come back and they've both moved to the bed, and I've only been gone for 5-10 minutes. That means more than likely someone came in here, or they heard something, or something freaked them out. Um, I went out to the parking lot to have a smoke and have some coffee. And I was met with somebody sitting in the parking lot, and I bet you anything he's waiting to rape me. This is the life I lead, for real, in the United States of America, right now in Santa Fe, New Mexico. Crazy, right? So, I am, excuse that, maybe I better put that jacket on. I am going to spend the night attempting not to be raped. And the stuff that's coming out of the refrigerator now is, how they do that, I don't know. I think it's probably just an outlet or something. I doubt that it has to do too much with the mechanics of it, just because they use different stuff. I'm contemplating how I'm going to go about this, and how I'm going to deal with this situation. So, again, I went into my RV, and it smelled, just reeked like men's body odor, as did my private parts after my gang rape and sodomy at the Cabin 12 on the Best Friends Animal Sanctuary grounds. There was an RV parked in the RV park. I would guess that is where the mail came from. There was the woman with her teenage daughter. She said she was 17. And the weird thing about them is literally they look like demons. It was weird. And I could not shake the feeling that I had met them before. Somewhere. It was really odd. It was just really strange. So, at any rate, I actually wanted to make this video more concerning. I wanted to make a video about Dan. Dan with the last name S, starting with an S, Sporgazzi, or it was Italian. I met him in Los Angeles when I first moved to LA. He worked with and was really good friends with a woman named Stephanie LaMotta, who is the daughter of Jake LaMotta, the boxer that they made the movie Raging Bull off of. And anyhow, he was supposedly her friend for 20-something years. She's a quadriplegic. He would help her. He lived at the house. When I first met her, it was her sister-in-law. She's married to a man named Jorge who keeps a stash of cash, undeclared money at the house somewhere nearby, or probably at one of his girlfriend's house, depending. He shoes horses. Stephanie LaMotta seemed like a nice person. I started volunteering as soon as I pretty much moved to LA. I wanted to volunteer. I'd been so locked down with the syndicate in Hawaii and their ability to just control everything, jobs, blah, blah, blah. I was just so anxious to go out and do something. And volunteering seemed like a good start. And I had seen an ad on, I can't remember where I got to, Death Row Dogs, which is her organization. So I started volunteering with her, and that would meant basically going to the adoption events, setting up, cages, blah, 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 taking the dogs for a walk when they're there. I only did probably a handful of those, and right off the bat, I liked her. She was very straightforward. She was very, kind of sassy, brassy, just kind of like nutsos, a little bit. The big quality is I like people who just speak their mind. And I thought she was just kind of like an open, honest, speak your mind kind of person. I was wrong about that, by the way. But anyhow, I ended up becoming friends with her. And at least I thought so. I was at her house all the time, and I'd help sometimes in the period where her sister-in-law quit, or she fired her, sorry, and she went back to Mexico. I took care of her. I don't know if it was for 2 weeks or for a month. You know, feeding her, making food for her, you know, letting the dogs in and out. I was also walking her dogs at that point, getting paid to do that as well. And which was weird because she has like a really long 5-page thing about adopting one of her dogs, and it's obviously a requirement that they take care of the dogs, but yet she did not regularly have someone to walk her dogs, which was weird. She had like 5 dogs. Nice dogs, which always I try to judge people really off of their dogs, because I've learned that if someone has, you know, you can learn a lot through people, through their dogs. So anyhow, so much to say. At any rate, she ended up not being a nice person, really. And that whole brashness and whatever, yeah, she was like that, and that was, you know, very New York or whatever of her, but she was not honest and upfront. And apparently, even though I was at her house almost daily for a very long time, and I thought my presence was wanted there because, you know, she's quadriplegic, she really couldn't really do much, I was trying to help. I thought I was friends with her. Everybody else that I told her about in my life were like, get the fuck away from this bitch. Like, she's crazy, like, because of the shit that I went through with her. But through her, I met this guy, Dan, who ended up, at some point, working there and living in that little sort of big closet space that she had her sister-in-law living in. Jorge had built it onto the garage or whatever, and it was just a very, very tiny little studio. And I met Dan, and she had known him for 20-something years, and he apparently had a crush on me. That's what she told me. That's how he acted. I wasn't interested. I have not been interested in anything like that since I liked a guy that was a carpenter for me in Hawaii. I'm actually very particular now. Like, I actually have to like somebody and respect them, and, you know, and know that they're a good person. And I didn't know that about him, whether or not he was. He seemed like he was. You know, here he is taking care of a quadriplegic. You'd think, you know, blah, blah, blah. Anyhow, we were friends, I would say. And when I moved back to Hawaii to sell my house only, I stayed in contact with him. And I had asked if he wanted to come to Hawaii to help me to fix up the house and fix the things that they were breaking, like my washing machine. And, you know, because I would come home and then my washing machine wouldn't work and there'd be screws all over the ground, and that was them destroying yet another thing I own. And just help me in general to set up security, and then also be able to be there so I could leave the house with the dogs or do errands and feel safe with my house being somebody there. And that I said, you know, we could work out, you know, money-wise for actually doing certain jobs, and then certain things would be in, you know, basically in, you know, free room and board. So, so at any rate, when I, you know, talked to Stephanie about this, she flipped out and was like, you're not my friend, and like she was ever mine. And if you do this and I need him and he can't come there, and I was like, oh my God, like, that you feel that way, I'm so sorry. Like, despite the fact I was dealing with those kind of people in that situation, I was like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. Like, I don't want to, like, you know, take somebody you really need and whatever. But Dan really wanted to come. That's what he kept saying. And eventually her berating me and just being super disgusting towards me and everything, I finally was like, fuck you. Like, who cares? If he wants to come, he's a grown person. He can make the decision he wants to make, you know? It's up to him. He ends up coming. But with a lot of, like, weird back and forth, and, like, until, like, for a couple months. And during that time, I'm being drugged, and I'm sick, and I'm just dealing with so much stuff. And, you know, you can't imagine how much I was like, oh my God, I hope he'll come, because I'll, like, maybe be safe you know, my animals will be safe. You know, I had this like, but I didn't, even despite all that, I didn't like fully pressure him until a couple months went by, and finally I was like, look, you need to tell me whether you're going to do this or not, because I don't, this is becoming upsetting to me that you're like, maybe, you know, 1 week yes, 1 week no, blah, 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 you know? It's like, do what you want to do. I mean, I'm not, but you need to make a decision. So he says he's going to come. So this is how it was. When I got to the airport, I had the distinct feeling just off the bat, and this is just, I didn't have any, you know, pre-thoughts of this, is that he was at the airport waiting for me and had been dropped off there. Not that he had just gotten off a plane. That was just my instinct. That was my gut feeling, where he was, the way that all worked. It just was weird. And right off the bat, he just seemed to be acting strange. And it sucked, because I was like, you know, all these hopes on, like, you know, like I just said, safety, blah, 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 not getting drugged, being able to fix my house, being able to sell it, getting the fuck out of there. At any rate, he immediately was acting strange, and strange things just started happening. Like, I remember when I had him in, like, my house was set up in a way that's 3-bedroom, 2-bath, but I had made a studio out of the master bedroom, the back bedroom that had its own bathroom and was kind of on the other side of the house. And I had put a studio stuff in there. And at some point I moved him from the 2-bedroom area to that, because I thought, number one, it gives him more privacy, it gives me more privacy. He has his own unit there. You know, I could have rented that for $1,800 a month, $1,500 at least. It had its own little yard and everything, big, you know. But what was weird is, like, when I moved the bed, and he didn't seem to want to move at first. And when we moved the bed, I noticed that he had cut, or somebody had cut along the seam of it and made, like, a little, like, area that you could then put stuff into it, hide stuff. And I noticed that when the move, and that was within a few days of him being there. I was still waking up drugged and having feelings of being messed with, and but there was weirder stuff. Like, I left audio recorders on to see if he was having other people in the house when I wasn't there. And he did weird stuff, like play music really loud right next to, like, where the audio recorder was. Oh, she's up there. Did you hear that? It's very slight. I know. And then one of the big things I wanted him to help me with was setting up a camera system, and seeing if people had been messing with it. And I had all these old camera systems that I had been using before I left Hawaii. And one of them was this big Lorax with its own built-in screen, and I think I had paid like $1,000 for it at the time, and it had a bunch of cameras. And anyhow, I had like 3 different camera systems, and I had one that I had brought back from from Portland, because that's where I'd been living before I moved back there. And he couldn't seem to get any of them working. This guy that could take apart a computer and put it all back together, he couldn't seem to figure shit out. And everything was like, I don't know, and then this would like, and it started to feel like he didn't want to have them fixed. Look, wow, the refrigerator finally turned off. Isn't that amazing? That's a long time for that refrigerator to run. So he turned it off. Sorry. So there was one that had, like, you know, the modem or whatever, the stuff that ran the whole thing, and it needed a screen, but it had cameras, and the camera set up to there. And I've known how to do these things and set them up for a long time because of having to deal with this whole thing. So anyhow, we were looking at one, and I said, I want to open this up and see what it looks like on the inside. And we did. See if anything was wrong with it, anything at all, blah, blah, blah. And everything looked normal. However, the next time I opened it up, one of the pieces inside there, which I didn't know what any of this shit did, but it was like a little round thing like this, and it was black, and it was a piece soldered on, obviously, and it was part of the whatever system. I don't know what it did again. Had been removed, and there was this really shiny silver round thing there instead that looked brand new. And these things were old, you know, like 10 years old. I freaked out. And I was like, okay. And he was like, that was there. As soon as he said that, I knew 100% that he was helping them. That was on top of all the other things that I had been experiencing with him. But I knew what I fucking saw. You know, he couldn't fucking tell me that I didn't see what I fucking saw. But he tried. And then I was like, okay, I'm going to call the manufacturer. I'm going to find out if this is, you know, part of it, blah, blah, blah. And I called the manufacturer, and they were like, just take a picture of it, and then, you know, we'll find out. So the next day, which I should have done it then and there, yep. But the next day, I went to go take a picture of it, and the silver thing was gone. And that black thing was back there. And I, in my mind, was just flipping out. Because that couldn't have happened without him being there when it happened. So I opened it up and I was like, what the fuck? I'm like, and he was like, that was there the whole time. I don't know what you're talking about. What silver thing? But I was like, wow, we had like a whole like hour plus conversation about this silver thing. And I called the manufacturer. I mean, all these things happened. Like, and you're going to literally sit there and act like none of this shit happened? She's right there. Isn't that nuts? I have to fucking live with some fucking rapist crazy bitch up there. Like, shouldn't I just take my gun and start shooting up there? Since I know she's right there. Maybe tonight, later I will. And I knew. And the moment I started, like, I was like, fuck this dude. You fucking are helping these people. Like, what the fuck? And because up until then, he hadn't really blatantly shown me that he was. But as soon as he started lying about something like that and trying to make me seem like I was full of shit, I knew. And the moment I confronted him, he kind of wigged out. And he was like, I'm going to go to Starbucks. I was like, okay, you're going to walk down to Starbucks from my house, which is not far, but it's a little odd. But what it was he needed to go talk to these people and find out what he's supposed to say, what he's supposed to do, what his response needs to be. That's what he wanted to do. And I knew that. And I'm like, get the fuck out, go, you know? And I should have called the cops. I should have called the cops at that point because Dan was not the kind of guy that could fucking bullshit. He just wasn't. He thinks he's smart. He thinks he's smarter than he is. He's just one of those people that wouldn't do well. They probably would have sent a cop that would have been shitty. They would have had to, and that wouldn't have gone well. So who knows if that would have been the right move or not. But anyhow, he came back very short amount of time later, too short to be able to go to Starbucks and back walking. He obviously walked down the road, got a ride from these people, went and got Starbucks, had a conversation, got a ride back because it was too short. I walked there all the time with my dogs, and I bet you anything I walked just as fast as he did. He's in his 60s, by the way. Just in case anybody wants to figure out who he is. And lived in the United States for 25 years plus illegally. So he came back and he tried to play the this never happened thing again. And I just said, and he's like, well, fine, then fine, I don't need to be here. And I'm like, fucking great. Awesome. Get the fuck out. You know, like, I don't need someone that's going to help people to fucking drug me, abuse my animals, rape me. Like, what the fuck? You know? Like, and the whole thing was just really fucking weird. And he grabbed some of his stuff and just bailed. And that was it. And never heard from him again. And, yeah. I have no idea if the syndicate killed him, which would be what I would do if I were them, because he was just, again, not somebody that you would want involved in this. His illegal residence, his inability to lie. I mean, Stephanie used to always call him, like, dunce, and thought he was basically, autistic. you know, he was an off person. I don't know what his situation was, but not that off. I didn't feel like autism. No, um, maybe he was just a psychopath or had psychopathic tendencies. At any rate, yeah. So I wonder where Dan, whatever his last name is. I would expect that he would have gone back to LA, and despite the fact that Stephanie kept saying if he goes back down there, he's never welcome back here again, which was so kindergarten. I'm like, whatever. Again, not my fucking decision. It's up to him. But I suspect that he would have gone back to LA because he didn't have anywhere else to go except for Canada, where he's from, which he's from the BC side, that island off of BC. At least that's what he told me. And he had gone back there for a year to change his name. And this is the thing, I got to know him better in the couple weeks he was there. And he was a fucking criminal. He was telling me about how he had worked for this lady, this rich lady, who owned a big plot of land in LA and in the valley, but in LA, in the valley, and a big plot of land, like a couple acres maybe, and which is a lot in, like, you know, the city part. I can't remember exactly where, if it was Sherman Oaks or I'm not exactly sure, but I guess he had started working for her and of course living there. And he had tried to, I think, initiate some sort of relationship with her, and she died of cancer, and she had a dog, and I guess he had gotten her to write down on a napkin that he would get to live in the house to take care of the dog until the dog died. So when she died, however, people showed up because she had a shit ton of money, and that's what happens. And people had showed up. This is why she's going up here, so she can do shit right down on me because I can feel it. And people had showed up and, of course, been like, "What? Who the fuck are you? Like, what are you doing here?" Like, you know, they were all ready to just sell the thing and do whatever. And he was like, "Well, no, I have this piece of paper that says I can do this." And of course, what ended up happening is he left the house one day and he came back and the dog was gone. And that ended that for him. But what would come out of his mouth regarding the whole thing, which was really odd, is that despite the fact that he would openly admit that what was actually written on that napkin, he would always say, "That was my property." And it's like, actually, that's not what was said on the napkin. If you're telling me what's on the napkin, that's actually not what she said. Anyhow, he tried to go to court for it, and I mean, all this stuff. I mean, it was really weird. And at the end of the day, it sounded like basically he was trying to rob a woman that was dying of cancer, and tried to get her to sign over all her shit to him. And she was actually probably with it enough to only be very specific. But on it, she had put, "Danny can do this." And his name is not officially Danny. So this stupid ass motherfucker, and this is maybe where she says he's autistic, because this is kind of weird that he went all the way back to Canada to change his name to Danny officially so he could reinforce this napkin that didn't even say that it was his property when she died. I mean, really, literally, the moment that dog disappeared, even if someone had wanted to enforce the napkin, it was done. About this if I get kicked out again. Rita! No. No. I'm sorry. No. I know, you're just afraid of Mommy's rapist. It's very hard life we're living.
6 to 8 acres a day.
What were your sales last year?
$243,000.
You're okay,
And that's with a two-person operation.
I gotta tell you, I never would have thought you were this out of this.
Anyhow, that's Dan, and that's one of their people. One of the people that they got to help. And it was really fucked up.
We actually sold the Las Vegas wedding wagon to new owners last year, so that we can devote our time and attention to launching the franchise company, which is why we're here today.
Really?
Yes, we envision a Los Angeles wedding wagon.
So this is difficult because here are the dogs. I want them to be able to feel like they can protect themselves because of all the beatings and then being in the same room as I'm being raped and sodomized. However, we're in a hotel, and if they bark a lot, we're gonna get fucking, I get worried about that. So, it's really difficult to try to help them have confidence in themselves, which they don't have anymore because they've been beaten down so many times and had to be, forced to leave me in rooms while I'm being raped and removed. And, anytime that Miho has tried to fight back and everything, they've just beat on him. So it's very difficult, but they've barked a couple times while I've been here. Not enough, I don't think, to say anything, but I haven't heard a ton of other dogs barking, so, it's a bummer. Okay. I just wanted to make note because I know I've made this probably in the past, but since I have possibly new viewers, that guy, if the feds talk to him, if the police talk to him, easy. He'd never be able to lie and get away with it. There's just certain people that, it's really actually not as easy as people think to be able to lie and have people not know that you're lying. For people, especially like a federal agent or a police officer that is smart, it's just not that easy because you're going to seem like you're not telling the truth. And you have to be a very high-level psychopath to be able to trick people into believing something, or for them, because whether they know what particularly you're lying about or the level of your involvement or whatever, that may not be very clear. But what will be clear is that you're not being truthful. And in this circumstance, what reason would he have to not be truthful? Of course, again, if I were the syndicate, I would have buried him in the sand in Hawaii and never let him leave. And that's a possibility. I have no idea. I don't know what happened to him. But he's one of the people that, if I were them, I wouldn't have around. So, anyhow, I'm going to go let my dogs know that they're okay, and it's okay that they can bark, but just give them a little attention. And that's it. Tonight their goal will be to gang rape and sodomize me in the resident inn at Marriott. And my goal for the night is to not be gang raped and sodomized and have that woman touch my body. And that's that.